ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Jane Goodall, the pioneer of field research into the lives of chimpanzees, has died at the age of 91. She died of natural causes while on a speaking tour of the United States. Jane Goodall lived an utterly remarkable life, and her work, it is said, represents one of the Western world's great scientific achievements. Jane was only 26 years old when she first visited Tanzania to begin her research on chimpanzees in the wild. Chimps are our closest evolutionary cousins. But before Jane went into Eastern Africa, we knew so very little about them. Because of Jane's research and observations, we now know that they eat meat, sometimes. We know they hold rain dances and they engage in organised warfare. Chimps make tools, they laugh, they're curious about the world around them, they have emotional lives, they love, they mourn, and sometimes they're capable of spectacular violence. And so in honour of this brilliant woman, we're bringing you my conversation with Jane Goodall, which I recorded when she came into our studio back in 2008. She was such good company. Hello, you're all rugged up in our air-conditioned studio at the moment. Are you wishing you were in Central Africa right now?
Well, sometimes it's too hot there, actually.
Jane, I actually think chimps are the most interesting animals in the whole wide world. Do you still feel that way?
I definitely think they're utterly fascinating. I mean, you know, our research is now almost 50 years, and we're still learning new things about them. And that's, of course, because they're long-lived. They live more than 50 years. They're all different. They have their own personalities. So, yeah.
You can draw a line in, chimp science, if you like, primatology. There's before Jane Goodall and after Jane Goodall. Why did we know so little about them until you came along? This intrigues me. I mean, much of what we knew about chimps, we thought we knew, was completely wrong.
A lot of it was, there was some good research done in captivity, but nobody had been out in the wild with them. So that's where one started to learn about complex social societies and all the different things that they can do out in their own world.
Was it arrogance, too, that stopped human beings from seeing chimps as they really are?
Partly arrogance, but partly, I think, a kind of fear. Because once you break down this barrier that used to be perceived between humans on the one hand and all the other animals on the other, if you break that barrier down and then you start to think about other animals having personalities, minds and feelings, then it becomes harder to treat them the way we so often do.
Chimps have language. They say hello, they greet one another. I know you're often asked to do this, but can you do that? Are you able to do it?
Yes, and it would be a greeting to everybody listening because it's a distance call. And in fact, I better lean away from the mic a bit because it's a bit loud.
All right, I'll watch my level.
I won't do it too loudly.
Okay.
But anyway, it's called the pantoot. Hello.
That's hello, is it?
Yes, but it also indicates who's calling because everyone has their own special voice. So as they live in this complex society where sometimes individuals are alone, sometimes there are small groups, sometimes the small groups meet up into big ones, then they scatter. So within this community of about 50, it's important for them to know where the others are, and that call really helps them to keep a tab on things.
How broad is their range of language? I'm imagining, apart from hello, there's also probably something for food, there's another one for danger. But are there words and phrases that go beyond 5 or 6 different things?
No, it's not. It's a communication. It's a rich communication rather than language per se thought of in human terms. And, so
but the things are being said and understood, aren't they? I mean, that's language.
Yeah, they communicate emotion. They mostly communicate emotion. It is a sort of language. But the unique part of human language is that we can teach about things that aren't present. We can make a plan for years ahead. You and I are having a discussion.
About chimps that are not in the room. At least not that I'm aware of, unless you've smuggled one in. Yes.
So that I think that's pushed the human intellect into something that you can't really compare. Even the brightest chimps are amazingly bright and they can do things we never thought they could do. And it's quite clear the difference between us and them is not a difference of kind, but only degree.
Degree. And this is what your research has shown. We really have to get down to tin tacks like this, don't we? We used to say, well, humans are different because we laugh. The chimps laugh too, don't they? It's infectious too.
When they're tickling each other.
Do you laugh along with them when you hear them laugh like that?
Well,
I'm laughing at hearing you.
Yeah, no, we try not to, interact with them any more than is absolutely necessary, because I've always wanted to be a fly on the wall. And yeah, we used to play with them because, when I began, they'd take one look at this peculiar white ape and vanish. And it was desperately important to learn about them. I only had money for 6 months. I had no degree. I didn't want to let my mentor, Louis Leakey, down. And so it was getting very, very depressing when they vanished. So when I finally gained their confidence, it was amazing to be able to establish physical contact, to tickle a young one, to groom David Greybeard. But then bringing students in and realizing, I really didn't want to change their behavior.
They do like being tickled then?
Oh, they love being tickled. But we don't tickle them anymore, except we have many orphans whose mothers have been shot for food all over West and Central Africa. We certainly interact a lot with them, tickling them and grooming them and trying to use their sounds.
Do they react to tickling like humans do? Do they squirm with the light and try to get away, but don't try and get away at the same time?
That's right. Absolutely, they do.
Tell me about Gombe, the place where you began your research. Can you describe it to me? Paint a picture of this place to me.
Well, to me, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's on the east shore of Lake Tanganyika, the second deepest lake in the world, crystal clear water, even now. And along the shore of the lake, the forest rises up and it's green and lush. And going up the valley, it's very thick forest. And then there are these glorious waterfalls, little streams gurgling away. And of course, I love it in the rain, when you hear the rain pattering down on the leaves above and everything's soft and green and brown. And there's such a feeling of the interconnectedness of all life and the cycles of death and life that are endless, and a feeling that this place has been there for thousands and thousands of years.
When you're there, Jane, are you mostly alone? And when I say alone, not with other human beings in the area?
The main thing for me is to be alone out in the forest, with or without the chimps. I still get an enormous recharge of my batteries when I'm out in that beautiful forest. Perfect solitude. You need that. Definitely. And then, of course, you climb up out of the valleys with their rainforest, and then you come into more open woodland area where you can look out over the lake, the blue expanse of the lake, and sometimes see a storm coming across the valleys, and you can hear the rain getting closer and closer. And then maybe the sun comes out and there's a beautiful rainbow. I wish I was there right now, the way you describe it. It sounds wonderful. It is. Describe to me your idea of a perfect day there in Gombe. Well, a perfect day, the kind of days I was so spoiled. I had so many of them. Getting up when it's dark, little piece of bread, a cup of coffee from a thermos, climbing up to where the chimps nested and waiting for them to wake up. And then you hear their morning pantoots, and they very often, if there's males there, they display in the branches, feed a bit, and then they wander off and you follow them. And feed again around lunchtime, intensively in some patch of fruit they've been walking towards. And then very often they'll lie and rest. In the wet season, up in the trees, they make little nests. In the dry season, they sprawl out on the ground and the young ones play. Do you keep your distance or do you lie there with them? I have lain there with them. We try and keep a distance. There's a huge risk of us infecting them with disease. So all these things that we've learned, and of course they've become increasingly endangered. So now, about 10 meters, we try to keep that distance away. Of course, they come closer. And but in the old days, I would lie with them. I've even had a young one lie with his head on my foot, asleep, which was, so wonderful, this trust that was built up. When you say follow them, we're not talking about well-worn bush tracks, are we? Crawling. Crawling. Yes. Sometimes crawling through very thick, thorny, and sometimes losing them. But if when you're there for a long time, you know roughly where they're going. You know where the foods are, probably as well as they do. So you can very often find them again, even if you lost them. And we have a Tanzanian field staff, and they are amazing. I mean, those guys now, some of them have been working there for 20, 25 years. They're fantastic. But anyway, the day will then, a lot of feeding in the evening, young ones playing, and then comes the time when they make their nests and the sun's setting, and they climb up in the trees and sometimes call back and forth across the valley to each other.
And that's when you go back to your home.
Then I would scramble back, often in the dark.
What do you like then? Covered in dirt and cuts and leaves?
No, not really. You wear long trousers so you don't get your legs too scratched, and you just learn how to move through the vegetation.
And once your day is over and you're in this, what is it, a cabin or something by the
Well,
the
it
lake?
used to be a tent. It's a cabin now.
What do you do then?
I eat some supper and then transcribe the notes of the day. That used to go on quite late. And in the early days, we only had hurricane lamps, not the bright ones, but the wick with a little flame, not the bright mantle. And so write the notes up. Then as we got more technological, a little typewriter would come along. And so...
Describe the evenings at dusk, the dusk period. There.
Well, the dusk period, when I'm back there now, the little cabin is down on the beach. Very, very simple. I mean, there's no running water. We now have solar panels, but there hasn't been electricity. And then you can just go and sit on the beach and watch the sunset over the lake, and it's so beautiful. And then afterwards, the stars seem very close because there's no light pollution.
How nice that no one's built condominiums on that yet.
Well,
We'll
they
see.
won't. It's a national park, and it's very safe, but it's very, very tiny. That's the problem.
Jane, reading about you, Dr. Jane Goodall is my guest on the Conversation Hour today. Growing up in England, you seemed like you were called to Africa. You felt this longing to go to Africa. What in your mind was drawing you there? Was the landscape, or the animals, or something else?
No, it was the animals. I think it began, I always loved animals like lots of kids. Had a wonderful mother who supported all this love of animals, so she didn't get mad when I took worms to bed. She just said they needed the earth. We took them out together.
Why did you take worms to bed?
Well, I was only 1.5, so I have no idea. She says it looks as though I was trying to work out how they walked without legs, but anyway. But then when I was about 8, I suppose, I read the Dr. Dolittle books, and there's this wonderful story where he takes animals from the circus back to Africa, and I think that began it, seeing the monkeys and everything. But then when I was around 10 or 11, I found the books about Tarzan of the Apes. And, of course, I fell in love madly with this glorious Lord of the Jungle. And no television then. There wasn't any. So it was the books that I read. And I fell in love with this glorious creature. And then what does he do? He marries that other wimpy Jane.
Jane, who's hopeless.
Absolutely.
You would have been a better Jane, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I was. So anyway, that's when my dream began. I knew there wasn't a Tarzan. I wasn't stupid. But yes, I will grow up, I will go to Africa, I will live with animals, and I will write books about them. That was the dream.
That's what you said. How did you actually do that?
Well, everybody laughed at me. How would I do it? We didn't have any money. I didn't have a degree when I left school. We couldn't afford university. Africa was still a dark continent. There were no 747s going back and forth with tourists, and I was the wrong sex. Girls didn't do that sort of thing back then. So no wonder they all laughed, except my mother, who said, if you really want something, you work hard, you take advantage of opportunity, you never give up, you find a way. So I did a secretarial course because she said then maybe you get a job in Africa. And eventually that's what happened. I got invited out by a school friend. There wasn't any money, so I left the job I had in London with documentary films, worked as a waitress for months, and eventually had enough money for a return fare to Africa.
Do you remember stepping off the plane or the boats in Africa?
It was a boat.
Where did you land? In Morocco
landed
or something?
in Mombasa in Kenya, and that's where they lived, up in the high hills, the Kinangop.
And once you got off that boat, do you remember feeling that, this is it, this is where I'm meant to be?
I felt, it was the boat, because of the Suez War, had to go all the way around Cape Town from England. So it was 25 days at sea and hugging the coast of Africa. So I was getting this feeling, you don't get it with air travel, but by boat, when you can smell the land and the wind gets warmer and it becomes more and more exotic. And then actually arriving in Mombasa, it's always a bit sad when you leave people that you've been with on a boat. There's something about boat friends, I think. But a lot of us were actually on the train to Nairobi, and that's where I met my school friend. And then followed a drive up into the hills. And I remember there was a giraffe at the side of the road. And I mean, giraffes, yes, we all know giraffes, but to actually see a wild giraffe looking down with those huge eyes and the great long eyelashes and the rather supercilious face. And then on the road was an aardvark, that's an ant bear. And you hardly ever see them. I've only seen ever one, but there it was on the road, just ambling along. So I didn't realize at the time how magic that was.
How did you start working with the great Dr. Louis Leakey, Jane?
I heard about him. I was staying with my friend, and then I got a job in Nairobi because we were brought up not to sponge, outstay your welcome, And I heard somebody said, if you want to learn about animals, you should meet Louis Leakey. So I called him. I said I needed to see him. He answered the phone himself, which was a little intimidating because he hated telephones. Went to see him, and I think he was impressed because as he took me around the Natural History Museum, I knew so much about the animals because I had gone on and on reading and learning about them, Natural History Museum in London and so forth. So he gave me a job as his secretary. See, Mum's advice was so good. And then he took me with one other young girl and his wife and a few Kenyans to one of their summer digs for fossils in Olduvai Gorge, which is now really famous. There are big roads leading there, buildings. But in those days, no human fossil had been found, and it was wild, untouched Africa with the grass stretching away, the golden grass, and all the animals were there then, the lions and the rhinos and all the antelopes. And after this long, hard day digging away under the hot sun, Gillian and I were allowed to just go walking out on the plains on our feet. It was magic.
Did you hold a fossil in your hand?
I sometimes, you found the fossils and you sort of marked them and so forth. And then just every so often, I would be holding one and suddenly I'd think, this was a living animal. This was here thousands and thousands of years ago. And I would sort of close my eyes and imagine. I remember holding a tusk of a pig, and they were very, very big. And I imagined the actual pig standing there big and the sounds it was making and its brown hair. It was amazing.
What made you pursue chimpanzees? Why chimpanzees?
Because Louis Leakey had been searching for somebody for 10 years, he says, who was suitable to go and learn about chimpanzees, because he was learning about our earliest ancestors from fossils. That's what his life was spent on, fossilized remains of Stone Age man. And he felt that maybe he could learn or imagine better the behavior of these Stone Age ancestors if we learnt something about the behavior of our closest relatives in the wild.
Was he finding fossilized remains of a common ancestor between us and chimpanzees?
No, he was much later. He was interested in the early kinds of human, the Australopithecus and the Homo erectus and so forth. Those were the kind of fossils he was. But he always said, if we find behavior in chimpanzees and humans today with our close relationship, then maybe that behavior was present in a common ancestor about 7 million years ago. And if that was true, then that behavior probably came with us throughout our long evolutionary history. And indeed, there is so much that is so the same between chimpanzees today and humans today.
So then for his work, to know the truth about chimpanzee behaviour is really important to his work.
He felt it was. Chimpanzees, orangutans, gorillas.
So it's all very well to say, Jane Goodall, go off and research chimpanzees. What did that mean?
What it meant was, first of all, a year trying to find the money because, I had no degree. I hadn't been to university and I was a girl and I didn't really know Africa. So no wonder it was hard for him. But eventually he got money for 6 months. And then in those days, Tanzania was Tanganyika. It was a British protectorate. And the authorities were absolutely not prepared to take responsibility for this girl. What a crazy idea. But in the end, they said, all right, if she has a companion, she can come. So who volunteered? for the first 4 months, that same amazing mother. She packed up in England.
Your mum did?
She did. I mean, isn't this amazing? And I can't emphasize enough what an inspiration and help to me she was throughout my life.
She sounds like an amazing woman.
She was.
All about realising the wildest, most improbable dream, but it's all about just sticking to these basic, pragmatic series of decisions, and that's how you get to do this.
That's right. It's all. I mean, I look back on my life and see, there were milestones, and it's almost as though the whole thing was planned, and all I had to do was make, hopefully, the right decision at the right crossroads.
So there you are with Mum in the jungle. So let's go and look for chimps. What happened, Jane?
Well, she stayed in the camp. I went up into the mountains. For the first, I suppose, month, I was made to take one of the game scouts with me, which wasn't helpful, but, I had to do it. And then gradually, well, Jane's okay. I mean, she's a bit crazy, but she's okay.
Let her go.
So I went on my own after that. And it was very depressing in the first weeks, even months, because, as I say, they were running away all the time. But it was when I got back in the evening that Mum was she would boost my morale. Think, Jane, what you're learning about the nests they make at night, the kind of foods they eat, the groups that they travel around in, some of their communication system. Just think what you are learning. And
she was right.
And she was right.
So how did you then, acclimatise the chimps to your presence?
Well, it was one, David Greybeard, I named him. I got to know him first. He seemed right from the beginning to have less fear. We don't know why. Sometimes there were just a few people living in a little camp in this game reserve, as it was then. And they would report one male chimp that sometimes came and fed near their little camp. And indeed, that was David Greybeard, as I later discovered. And it was really because he lost his fear. When I approached, he didn't run away. That the others who were ready to run stopped and looked and, well, she can't be so terrifying. David Greybeard's just sitting there. And so gradually he led me into this magic world.
Did he touch you? Did he want to groom you?
No, not at all. He never wanted to touch, but he did eventually allow me to groom him, which is pretty amazing.
Is touch a really big deal then? Or is it just because you weren't a chimp?
It was because I wasn't a chimp, but a lot of their communication relates to touching. So you've got touch, posture, gesture, and touch is very important, especially this grooming, which is soothing, and reassurance. If a chimpanzee is scared, then the other will gently pat or groom or kiss or embrace.
Describe what it was like to groom him, Jane.
Well, the first time when he allowed me to groom him, I couldn't really believe it. Here's this wild male chimpanzee, and he's actually letting me groom him. The hair is coarse, the skin is warm, and it was hard to believe it was true. And then the old female Flo came along, and she took one look, and she was absolutely horrified, and she gave a sort of scream and hit my hand away. She didn't like me touching David Greybeard.
I had a guest on some months ago, Annette Henderson, who worked for some years in Africa and encountered gorillas, which is different primate altogether, I know. But she had two encounters she remembers, which were so personal to her and so touching to her. She said she'd crossed the species barrier momentarily. Do you know what she's talking about there?
Absolutely. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
And what does that mean? You're looking into the eyes of a chimp?
Looking into the eyes of a thinking, feeling being, knowing that you'll never really know what the thoughts are, which adds to the mystery, but knowing that there's a real presence there, a conscious, sentient being.
And what do you think he's seeing in you?
That's what I always wonder. That's part of the mystery. That's part of, why it's so fascinating to go on studying them. And of course, there's a lot of studies on captive chimps and their intelligence, which is amazing.
Dr. Jane Goodall is my guest. Legendary primatologist, is that the word, Jane, for what you've been as a? Is that the
well, my
correct title?
My degree was in ethology, which is the study of animal behaviour, when I eventually got my degree at Cambridge University.
Jane, your early studies of chimpanzees when you were there, this is the 1960s, isn't it?
In 1960 it began.
The first thing you discovered was, we used to say, well, we humans are different because we make tools. Mm-hmm. How did you realise that chimps make tools too?
Well, yeah, Man the Toolmaker was very exciting because I was depressed. I hadn't seen any chimps that day. It was raining, it was cold. And then suddenly I saw this dark shape hunched over a termite mound. And looking through my binoculars, I saw this hand come out and pick a grass and push it down into the termite mound and bring it up with termites clinging on and bite them off. And then pick a leafy twig and strip the leaves. That's modifying, thus making a tool. And I actually didn't believe it. I did believe it, but I couldn't believe that this was anything other than a chance observation. So I waited until I'd seen it at least twice more, which didn't take long because it was the beginning of the termite fishing season, beginning of the rains. And then I sent a telegram to Louis Leakey. And he said, well, now we have to redefine man, redefine tool, or accept chimpanzees as humans. So it was the first of those barriers between humans and the rest of the animals to be broken down.
It's amazing to think that the act of a chimp sticking a reed down a hole can create international shockwaves like that.
I know. Well, a lot of people said I'd taught them, and how could they believe this young girl who didn't even have a degree back then?
And so how did that scepticism eventually break down, Jane?
Well, we got photographs, we got film. It was very, very obvious that there was no way I could have taught them because most of them wouldn't let me near them at that time. That was before. That was David Greybeard, actually, who demonstrated that. But he hadn't yet calmed the others down very much, so...
He sounds like a chimp of enormous character, this chimp who wasn't afraid of you, who you've seen making tools. Do you think he was... I know we shouldn't project things, but do you think he was exceptionally intelligent or exceptionally something or exceptionally... What?
He was not exceptionally intelligent, actually. He was very calm. He was a leader, not that he became top-ranking male, although his friend was, Goliath. But he was very calm, and others would often choose to follow him because he was gentle. And he was very handsome. And very special. He was the one who taught me that chimps eat meat as well.
Yes, this was another misconception up until your research that chimps don't eat meat, but they do. What did you see them eating?
It was a young bush pig David had caught, and the adults were charging about down below. And it was soon after that I actually saw a hunt, and it was a colobus monkey, young colobus monkey that was hunted. So they don't eat meat very often.
No, but every once in a while. Describe what goes on in a hunt then for that's that red monkey, the colobus monkey?
Yes, colobus monkey.
Yeah.
Well, those hunts are actually usually rather dramatic. And what happens very often is that you'll have one monkey will be slightly separated up on a emergent branch from the canopy, and you'll sometimes see the chimpanzees take up position in all the trees which could act as an escape route. And then one of them will climb up and grab. It's usually what they grab is a mother and take the baby away. That's their normal prey is the young ones. Is
there a kind of a triumphal war whoop that is that followed by this kind of, I don't know, bloodlust or this sense of...
It's followed by a frenzy as everybody rushes to try and grab some from the successful hunter.
So it's torn apart, this monkey, essentially? It's dismembered pretty quickly?
Well, it depends. If it's a high-ranking male who has that carcass, he can keep it, and he will turn his back on the others. And the sharing that goes on, which it does, is usually because it's so irritating that you can't really eat if everybody's trying to come up and hold their hand out and beg, and, it must be awful.
You mentioned before the chimps laugh, and you did a great, you did a chimp laugh for us. What sort of things do they laugh at? Is it pratfall stuff? Is it basic stuff?
Oh, it's being tickled. It's mostly being tickled. Occasionally anticipation of something. Like I've heard a mother actually laugh because her older child, who's about 6 years old, has not been paying attention and doesn't know where she is. And you hear this ooh, 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 lost sound. And I've twice heard one mother actually chuckle when she heard this sound. She didn't make a sound herself that the lost one could hear.
Chuckle. That's interesting. That's really interesting. That seems to suggest worldliness. So I'm not quite sure what that hints at.
Well, what it hints at is that they have a sense of humour.
Yes.
They do. And, there's many anecdotes about sense of humour with the great apes.
Give me one.
Well, my favourite one is a gorilla, actually, and she's learnt sign language. And this young woman is there keeping her occupied until her supper's ready. And Coco, the gorilla, has just learnt the names of all the different colours, and the young woman is testing her, and she's right. And then suddenly the young woman holds up a white cloth, and Coco signs red, which is a flipping of the lip. Oh, Coco, you know better than that, all in sign language. What colour is this? Red. What colour is this, Coco? You won't get your apple juice. And Coco reaches out, takes the white cloth, picks off a tiny speck of red fluff and goes, red. You cannot say that's not a sense of humour.
Jane, when chimps associate together, do you call it a tribe or a group? What do you call it? A community of chimps. How large are these communities? How many in a group?
It can be, they've been around 50, sometimes smaller, but the main study group has remained around 50 all these years.
One alpha male in this group?
One alpha male. And if there isn't an alpha male, there's a whole lot of fighting. Everybody's uneasy. But an alpha male can reign from 1.5 years to 10. 10's the longest sojourn in that top position. It's actually quite hard work to stay up there.
Do they stay there until they're killed? Or do they retire?
No.
Can they retire?
No. Well, they don't retire. They merely are challenged. And if they're getting on in years, sometimes it almost seems like a relief. They're challenged. Maybe there's a quick attack. And the alpha male submits to the challenger and then becomes very low-ranking but stays in the community. Whereas a high-ranking, much younger top male who loses a fight may actually be ostracized because the new top male will try and incite the others to attack because he's still afraid.
Do males and females segregate themselves from each other, or do they interact regularly?
Oh, they interact. I mean, you can have females wandering about on their own with their young ones. Males wander about on their own. Males are in all-male groups, especially when they patrol the boundaries of their territory. Females very often join up with males. Some are more social than others. It's a complete, decide on the day who you'll be with and where you'll go.
Are there any alpha females?
There are alpha females, but this is not very clear-cut because, for the most part, a female may be with her adolescent son, for example, in which case she will be able to dominate another high-ranking female who is there without such support. And this changes all the time, so you never quite know, they never quite know, how they're going to interact with each female they meet.
Do females fight?
They fight, oh yes, they fight. But not nearly as often as the males. It wouldn't be good because so much of the time they got a baby clinging to their breast.
Although you say this, it's not often really clear-cut. Every once in a while there is a super alluring female, a kind of siren.
Yeah, like
Flo.
Group. Yes, she attracted every single male mated with her. And she was so popular that she couldn't move without all the males watching her and then beginning to follow.
Are they jealous?
The top male, if he fancies a female and he's very powerful, will prevent others from mating with her, yes.
How will he do that?
By keeping watch on her all the time and threatening her if she starts moving towards another male.
Will he take her off somewhere sometimes?
The lower-ranking males are the ones who persuade females to follow them way away from all the others, way away from these high-ranking males, and they can only do that if they take the female before she's really sexually attractive, when she absolutely doesn't want to go with them. So they have to be quite brutal. But once they get her out towards the periphery of the home range, then she's afraid, so she sticks close to him, and it's almost like a little honeymoon.
A little honeymoon.
Yeah.
Jane, do chimpanzees mourn the death of each other?
Yes, we've had even an 8-year-old male who became so depressed when he lost his mother that he basically stopped eating and his immune system weakened and he was dead within a month.
Do they make different noises? Do they make a noise to indicate that they're depressed or they're mourning?
No, they just sit huddled and hunched and they just look very much like a socially deprived human child. And then, of course, the mother who loses a child, she also will... It's hard to describe, but it's a very dazed expression, and she may go to the top of a range of mountains, hills, and then sit there and look around and then go down as though she's not
Like she's trying to distract herself or something.
Well, she's just not thinking about what she's doing.
When you're observing that, your heart must go out to these
Oh,
chimps.
it's really sad, yes.
Your researchers have, and you've probably seen this yourself, have recorded instances where you've seen chimps curious, and showing curiosity, particularly around pythons that might come into the area.
Well, they're curious about everything. So a big snake, they don't meet them that often. They watch them, they make little alarm sounds, they shake branches. And of course, they're quite safe because they can scoot up a tree. But they're curious about holes in the ground or in a tree, and they'll investigate with a long stick. They're curious about all kinds of things.
There's no, I don't know what theory of natural selection would say that aids them in any evolutionary sense, does it? It's just, I don't know, a byproduct of a higher form of intelligence?
Well, no, I think it can lead to, for example, if you're an infant and there's a hole and there's ants in the hole and you're poking in with a little stick, we've seen where a mother will come along and take that little stick and eat the ant. And in a nearby community of chimps, those ants are eaten regularly. In the Gombe community, they were not eaten. Now they are. So it's a little chance. It's this curiosity, this investigation that can lead to a whole new and very adaptive behavior.
Chimps are capable of extreme violence, and you, other primates like us are capable of as well. You observed it from time to time, a 4-year war. Chimp war. What happened there? I know I'm asking you to summarise a 4-year chimp war, but are you able to do that? What actually happened with this war?
Basically, the main study community divided. I think there were too many males and it just wasn't comfortable. So one portion moved down to the south. And after several years had passed, there were no more friendly interactions. It had become a new community. And after that, the males of the bigger portion started patrolling, searching for listening for sounds of those who had moved south. And we have to realize that the territory that the southern group was now occupying had been available. So now suddenly part of their ranges has been taken over. And I think that's what led to the fact that if they saw one or two of the individuals who'd moved south or taken up residence in the south, they would hunt them. If they caught them, subject them to such a serious fight that they died subsequently of their wounds.
Who participated in the fighting? Was it just the males?
The males, yeah.
But females went on the...
females were killed.
Females were killed?
And females, when they're sexually attractive, they would sometimes be with the males, and so they would be there during the attacks.
I read somewhere that mothers and daughters would sometimes participate in attacks on children in rival camps.
Well, mothers, and that was completely different. That was a totally separate thing where one mother and her adolescent daughter began attacking, killing and eating newborn babies of females in their own community. So these are two completely separate things. And we don't know why that happens.
We don't know why?
No, we don't know why. It's happened twice. Two different mother-daughter pairs, one of which was successful, Passion and Pom, and the other, as far as we know, never killed a newborn baby. They didn't manage to.
You must have been shocked.
Oh, it was horrendous.
Horrendous, yes.
Absolutely dreadful.
Do most violent attacks take place when males feel that their territory is being impinged upon?
Yes, or they want to enlarge. Sometimes they will try and enlarge at the expense of a weaker neighbour. So, it's very human. It's like gang warfare, really.
There was a shocking story from about 3 years ago, which you may or may not be familiar with, about a chimp sanctuary in Los Angeles where some people went to visit their chimp that was there, and several chimps had gotten loose, and they attacked the man. They found him there, and they attacked him with such ferocity they left him nearly dead. They tore his face off, removed his foot. Wow.
There were other things going on, actually. The story, I don't think, has ever been really revealed. And the story that you read in the paper is that the chimp who'd been brought up by that man was the one who attacked him, but it wasn't. It was another one. It
was another one, yes. And it was said that the female chimps in the area that were in estrus at the time, does that often lead to heightened male violence?
Yes, it does. There's a lot of competition.
You obviously have experienced it, but have you been in danger yourself, stepping into the wrong place at the wrong time?
Well, at Gombe, there's one chimp, Frodo, who really is a bully. And he will go out of his way to come and knock me over. Not to kill me, not really to hurt me, but because Gombe is so rugged, if he pushed me over a slope with a drop of 40 feet, that'd be the end of me.
Has he pushed you over, Jane? Has he not succeeded?
You know, we honestly believe that he doesn't on purpose, because sometimes some of us have felt, well, if Frodo pushes me here, I've had it, and he doesn't do it, and we don't know why. I think he realizes.
What's the lifespan of a chimpanzee?
The oldest known is over 70, but that's in captivity. I think...
Is that Cheetah,
Yes.
the Tarzan's
Yes.
sidekick?
That's right. He's one of the 4 original cheetahs, and I went and had tea with him last year.
So in captivity, they can live that long?
I think 50 is probably pretty old in the wild, although some must live older.
Jane, you've actually recorded instances where you think you've seen chimps in awe of something, the natural landscape. Can you describe that? Describe what you've seen there.
This is where a waterfall is dropping 80 feet and it's making a roaring sound. And as the chimpanzees, usually males, get closer, you see a slight hair erection, which is a sign of excitement. And when they reach the stream, which is shallow on the rocks, they'll do these amazing waterfall displays or dances, swaying from side to side, picking up and hurling huge rocks, sometimes climbing the vines and pushing out in the spray of the waterfall as it drops down, displacing the air. And at the end, sometimes sitting and looking, watching the waterfall, always coming, always going, always here. What is it? And you can't help feeling that if they had the kind of language we had, if they could sit around and discuss why do we feel like this? What is this water? That it might turn into one of the early animist religions, the worship of the elements.
There have been cases where young female chimps have been observed making dollies. Dollies, it would seem.
Yes, well, pieces of wood carried around as though they're an infant. And in fact, I had a toy chimpanzee at one time, and one of the youngsters stole it. And she carried it around. At the time, her mother had a baby clinging to her breast, her little brother. So Fifi would cradle this little chimp toy to her breast. When the mother began to put the child on her back, Fifi put the toy on her back. So it's clear imitation.
And projection too, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, they are incredibly smart. And yet the intellect of the chimp can't be compared with the human intellect that's taken people to Mars. I mean, look at the technology that you're complaining about here, all these knobs and buttons. And I mean,
chimps don't have this yet.
Chimp could learn to use them, but they couldn't create them.
And couldn't talk about them if they weren't in the room?
That's right.
How often do you get to Gombe these days, Jane?
Twice a year, very briefly, and I just try and dive out into the forest and just spend time alone. Trouble is, there's so often a film team there at the same time, and that's disruptive, but it has to be. We have to share this. We have to raise awareness because the chimpanzees are endangered.
Yes, so this is what's taking you away all the time, the need to speak out on the chimps, which are an endangered species. Sadly.
Yeah, there were way over 1 million when I began in 1960. The very maximum today is 300,000, spread over 21 nations, disappearing because habitat's going. All around Gombe now, all the trees have gone, not just some. And Gombe's only 30 square miles. So our program is to work with all the villagers, improve their desperately poverty-stricken lives, particularly working with the women. And we're now helping them to sell really good coffee. They grow high up. As a result of all this helping them, they have agreed to leave a certain percentage of their land so that we can create a corridor with the different villages so that the chimps can once more move out. But although that's a big success story, right across Africa, chimps are going, habitats are going, human populations are growing, disease is spreading, and worst of all is the commercial hunting of all wild animals for food, the bushmeat trade.
That's still going on?
Oh, it's still going on. We're working really hard. There's several NGOs working with big donor organizations, forming a Congo Basin partnership. But it's lucrative. Lots of money is made. The logging companies open up the forest with roads. Hunters can go in. They shoot everything. It's absolutely not sustainable. It's the worst fight. And then, of course, you've got the poor old orangutans in
Malaysia and Indonesia,
yes.
Jane, along with David Attenborough, you're a patron of the Year of the Frog. Why is this the Year of the Frog?
I'm not sure why it's the Year of the Frog, except that frogs really are, they serve as a canary in the coal mine. Frogs are disappearing, all the amphibians, really fast because of the chytrid fungus disease, because of wetlands being drained, because of the pollution of the streams and the rivers. And it's really very, very serious.
Why do you say they're the canary in the coal mine?
Because the miners used to take the canaries down, and when the canaries started to die, they knew gas was leaking out. Because the frogs are dying, it shows us there's something really wrong with our environment, and it behooves us to do something about it.
What are you calling for?
Well, the program that I'm passionate about is the education program of the Jane Goodall Institute. The Institute's in 26 countries. Our youth program, Roots and Shoots, is now in 100 countries, and it's a symbolic name. Imagine a seed, it'll be a big tree. The little roots come out, they look so tiny. The little shoot looks small, but to reach the water, those roots can work their way between boulders and push them aside. The shoot can come through crevices in a brick wall and break it down to reach the sun. So it's symbolic. Hundreds and thousands of young people can break through the boulders and the walls, which is all the bad things we've done to the planet, environmental and social, and make this a better world for all living things. So, main message, each one of us makes a difference every single day. We cannot help impacting the world around us. And those of us fortunate enough can make decisions and make a difference. What we buy, what we wear, how we behave. And it started with 16 high school students in Tanzania. It's now involving kids from preschool, goes right through university. We've even got senior citizens with Roots and Shoots programs. And every group chooses 3 projects to make the world better. 1 to help people, 1 to help animals, 1 to help the environment that we all share.
Jane, you're an extremely audacious woman, and very successfully so. As you said, you decided you wanted to work with animals in Africa as a young girl without a degree, and you were a woman, as you said, in those days. That stood against you. You had no money to do it with, and yet you've done it. You've done it all. You've actually succeeded, and you've changed the way the whole world thinks about an animal. What's the secret of your audacity? Can I ask you that? What's the best way to go about it? And by audacity, I'm imagining there's not a lot of bluster in that. There's a certain way you go about what you do that's made you successful, that's seen you travel on this remarkable journey.
Well, I put a lot of it down to my mother because all the child psychologists and psychiatrists today are honing in on the tremendous importance of early experience in child raising. It's so clear with the chimps. It's so clear. Good mothers raise youngsters who are assertive and will play a major role in the reproduction of their group. Particularly the males are likely to become high-ranking. And the bad mothers have offspring who grow up to have tense nervous relations with other adults and don't do so well. So I think my mother gave me a wonderful start. She was wise. And, that's what's happened to us. We've lost wisdom. We've lost the wisdom where people would make a decision based on how will this affect our people in the future. And we're basing huge decisions today based on how will this affect the next shareholders meeting.
Can you see that situation is not going to improve over the next year or so, is it, given that the stock market's collapsed in a heap?
But don't you think it was inevitable? This model of constant, never-ending economic growth in a planet with non-renewable natural resources wasn't possible. Something had to give.
You say if everyone in the world was to live as us, we'd need 4 planets to do so.
4 or 5 new planets. I didn't say that. It's been worked out statistically. We've only got this one. And do you think there's been a disconnect between this incredibly clever brain and the human heart, a seat of love and compassion?
Jane, you're still full of energy. You're still travelling all around the world. 300 nights of the year you're away from home? When is there going to be a reach a point where you say, I'm going to now live for myself for a while? And will you go then back to Africa and do so?
If we've saved the world, I can do that. So there's no opportunity, I think, in my lifetime.
We'll be waiting a while. Yes. Well, it's wonderful because I wouldn't be speaking to you otherwise, Jane, and I've enjoyed it so much. Jane Goodall, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
That conversation with the late Jane Goodall was recorded in 2008 on the lands of the Jagera and Turrbal peoples. Producer was Pam O'Brien. Our executive producer is Nicola Harrison. I'm Richard Fidler. Thanks for listening.
ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.